How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with The Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about The Twilight Zone, the movie. This is from 1983, and is of course based on the black and white anthology TV show The Twilight Zone. At this point in time, The Twilight Zone had been canceled for quite a while, and people were starting to miss it and get nostalgic for it, and people have been talking about ways to bring it back in one form or another. The project eventually got to Steven Spielberg, who acted as a producer on this, and he had the idea to make it into a movie because The Twilight Zone needed to be celebrated. It needed to be on a big and grandiose scale. It needed to go from the small screen to the big screen, and that's a great idea, to do something that celebrates the beloved TV show. And it was a really cool idea, yeah. This is made up of 4 segments. Each were either remakes of old Twilight Zone episodes or inspired by old Twilight Zone episodes. And in addition to having these 4 sections, Spielberg also decided to get big-name directors to do each one. The prologue in the first segment was directed by John Landis, who you guys know for American Werewolf in London, as well as several other cool stuff, but that's his project that applies most to the Twilight Zone. The second section, Steven Spielberg directed himself. Now, you guys probably don't need any introduction as to who Spielberg is, but Jaws and Jurassic Park. The third section, one of my personal favorite directors, Joe Dante. You probably know him for Gremlins, and that's kind of obvious in this section. In addition to Gremlins, Piranha, and The Howling, as well as several underrated things like Small Soldiers, which I really do need to get to review for that sometime. But anyway, Joe Dante's cool. And then, lastly, a director that I really wish made more movies, George Miller, who you guys know from the Mad Max series. He actually, outside of Mad Max, didn't direct too terribly much, which I really wish he would have, because he's pretty cool. So, Landis, Spielberg, Dante, and Miller, a pretty big cast. The host voice, you don't actually see him, but the narration that talks about each segment is actually done by Burgess Meredith. You guys know him as the guy who was reading in the library after the whole world had ended. He was in several episodes of The Twilight Zone. Probably the best person to pick in the absence of Rod Serling. And a bulk of this movie's writing was also done by Richard Matheson. Richard Matheson, you may know him for I Am Legend, but he did several things, including several of your favorite episodes of The Twilight Zone, a big series veteran, and it's good to bring him back for this one. I definitely recommend checking out Matheson. But anyway, this movie stars quite a bit of people. Top billed is actually Dan Aykroyd. Now, Dan Aykroyd's in the opening section, so he's not in there too terribly long, but it's a good, memorable part. Really, really cool. And as Ghostbusters fans, it's always good to see Dan Aykroyd in something. A really memorable part, even if he's not in there terribly long. You also get Albert Brooks, Scatman Crothers, John Lithgow, Vic Morrow, and Kathleen Quinlan. So, a pretty cool cast. And it's a big cast, too, because it's an anthology, so just the top billed names are pretty cool. Let's go ahead and talk a bit about each of these sections. Now, I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, but I do want to say my piece on a few plot points and make sure you guys have a basic understanding as to what this movie's about. So let's go ahead and jump right into the introduction, the prologue, directed by John Landis. And you get 2 guys driving down the road in their car in the middle of the night. And this is a really fun section. They're singing along to music, their tape breaks, they start talking, they do a TV show theme song game where one hums a theme song and the other has to guess what it is, which leads them to talking about the Twilight Zone and reminiscing about the show and what their favorite episodes were. And this was what the audience at the time was feeling and thinking and it was cool to see that echoed on the screen. And there's also a funny gag where one of them brings up an episode, and the two debate whether it was a Twilight Zone episode or an Outer Limits episode, which is a really funny gag in this this meta section. The two really do bounce off each other and play really well, and they feel like real people. And it all leads to a fun ending, the "do you want to see something scary" ending, which is easily the most memorable part of this movie, and it's just the introduction part, so really, really love this segment. John Landis continues to direct as we go into Section 1, and Section 1 is about this man who just was turned down for a promotion at work, and the person who actually got the promotion was a Jewish man. Now, he goes into a bar with his friends and, quite unfortunately, goes on a long, drunken, racist rant, which is not good and results in him getting kicked out of the bar. Now, if you guys know the Twilight Zone, you know that there are several stories about characters who are deeply flawed and learn their lessons through supernatural means, and that's where this story is going. You see, when he's ejected from the bar, when he goes through the door, he's not outside the bar where he expects to be. He has suddenly traveled through time and he's in Nazi Germany. And on top of that, he's been recast into the role of a Jewish person. So getting to live in someone else's shoes for a while and learn that he shouldn't be racist. A good moral, and of course he mentioned several other groups of people in the bar. So after Nazi Germany, he goes, he's recast as a black person in the middle of a Klan rally. Then after that, he's recast as a Asian person in the middle of Vietnam. So a cool story with a moral, but that being said, from the moment he goes through the door, you basically know where this story is going. After the initial reveal, not any really huge surprises. It's pretty straightforward and on the nose, but it's made well enough, but you can really see where this is going. On top of that, though, this also has, like, you know, Ebenezer Scrooge at the end of the Christmas Carol, where he takes way too long to figure out what's going on, and that can be kind of frustrating. Other than that, there is one thing we have to mention with this section, and I'll try to go over it super quick. I don't want to dwell on it. But there was originally supposed to be a big helicopter finale. Now, quite unfortunately, the helicopter crashed and wound up killing this segment's star, as well as the two kids that were also in the scene with him. And it was very, very sad and tragic, and led to quite a thing after it happened. And it was because of this horrible accident that a lot of Hollywood safety standards were rewritten for the better, and Steven Spielberg, you know, because he had produced this movie, he went out and he had a statement saying along the lines of, "No film is worth dying for," and anyone, even if you're not the director, has the responsibility to say cut if something happens on stage that is too dangerous. They need to speak up and not let the dangerous stunt continue. And with Steven Spielberg's immense pull at this time, people were really apt to listen to him, and he did several important things during his Hollywood career, made several movies, but this speech on film safety and all the ears that would be willing to listen to Spielberg, this is probably one of the more important things he ever did in his career, telling other Hollywood directors to act responsibly and not put people in danger. It, I think, led to an overall safer Hollywood after this event. It's just sad that this terrible, tragic accident happened, but, you know, it is what it is, and I don't want to dwell on it anymore. So let's, speaking of Spielberg, move right along to Section 2. This is Steven Spielberg's section, and it is about these old people at a retirement home. One of their families shows up to visit, and although they said he was going to stay the weekend, they're too busy and he has to stay at the retirement home again. And it's a really sad and depressing atmosphere. A lot of these old people have forgotten, but they start to reminisce about their childhoods, things they like to do, and they start to think about feeling young again. And the head of this conversation is, of course, Scatman Crothers, the guy, Dick Halloran from The Shining. And he is a really, really cool character, kind of like The Shining. There's something mystical about him. And he starts to tell these people that in the middle of the night he's going to sneak out and play a game of kick the can. And of course, it's the Twilight Zone. There's going to be something supernatural going on here. Now, that being said, this section is extremely sappy, extremely sentimental. And I wondered if it was just me, if I'm just too, too cynical to really appreciate this. Luckily, I did look up on the internet after I watched this movie to see what other people felt like. And there was a group of people that felt that this was overly sentimental. So it's good to know that I'm not alone. But that being said, I'm sure this section has its fans who really appreciate it and get something out of it. But just a little too sappy for me. And it's another case of, a relatively simple story, but fine for what it is, but, not the cool Twilight Zone dark and twisty horror that I really like. But anyway, moving right along to segment 3, where this movie really kicks off, and that is in Joe Dante's section. There's this girl who's traveling, and after a scene in a diner, she accidentally hits a boy's bike. With no way else to go home, she offers the boy a ride back to his house, but there's something strange going on with the house and the family. You see, they're all overly eager to please the boy, yet there's something insincere about it. The house is strangely designed, and there's lots and lots of TVs everywhere just playing like cartoons, and they're doing strange over-the-top things, and it gets, as you go on, you can see more and more just how things are off, and it's a slow build-up to what the eventual reveal is, and it's cool to see things slowly get more and more strange in this one. It's a really fun build-up leading to some crazy Joe Dante stuff, all of a sudden they're coming in, and instead of hamburgers, they're just having peanut butter sandwiches, and it's this crazy sugar rush of a dinner, and you're like, okay, why are the adults putting up with this? This section seems tailor-made for Dante to come in and direct. Crazy, wacky, over-the-top stuff. But also, if you look through his movies, Joe Dante really has a love for classic cartoons, which is why they would later go on and give him Looney Tunes back in action. And there's some really cool puppet effects, cool cartoon stuff. And this is just Joe Dante in his A-game having fun. And it's a really good example of what the director likes to do, and it is just Joe Dante fun, and that's really where this movie starts to kick off, and I definitely recommend it to Dante fans watching the movie for this section alone. And it reinvents the episode it was based on a little bit, and the decisions there were smart for the new wacky Dante tone they were going for, and I definitely recommend this. I really love this section. Moving along to segment 4, this is the George Miller segment, and it's a remake of the classic Twilight Zone episode, Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. If you guys know any Twilight Zone episode, it's probably this one. A man who's afraid of flying is sat on a window seat. He looks out, and he's the only one who sees a strange creature on the wing messing with the plane's engine. But of course, he's already been established to be a paranoid character. No one really believes him. And how, as kind of an outcast anyway, as someone people are inclined not to trust, how do you get them to trust you? How do you stop this creature from messing with the wing and wrecking the whole plane, especially at such a disadvantage? The original episode's a classic, and this one is very good as well. The biggest change, they cut out the character of his wife. In the original, the wife kind of gives a bunch of exposition about, how he was just at a hospital and how he's going through all this stuff. But really, you don't need a bunch of exposition. You just need to know this guy's afraid of flying, and it was a smart, cut it, make it smaller, and instead of the wife, you do get a bunch of strange people on the plane, really weird sky marshal, a girl that's running around with a camera, a few stewardesses, and you get the sense of the other characters on the plane, and it is pretty fun. John Lithgow, you can see him just on the edge, like the original one, Captain Kirk, was playing this role, and he was really good too, and you could see his uncertainty, and then Lithgow in this one, you can really see him just on the edge the whole time. Really, really good choice to play this role. And on top of all this, this time it's a more action-packed route. The plane does start to hit turbulence, and it does start to, shake around quite a bit. In the first one, it seemed like everything was fine. He was the only one who knew. But in this one, the plane is bad, and he's the only one who knows the reason. And in turn, you do get the plane shaking and bouncing around, and you do get things looking pretty dire. So it's a more action-packed version of the original. But that being said, the biggest difference is the creature design is significantly better. You had old-timey black and white TV. The creature was, okay for its time, but like you could see the rubber pads on the bottom of its feet. Here the creature is significantly better and creepier looking, a good creepy face, and the way it moves around, it's much more like you could, imagine this thing moving around on the plane. Really, really fun, and it was a significant upgrade, this creature. So overall, this movie, the first section, really standard, and the second section, overly sentimental and sappy. But the prologue, the third section, and the fourth, really, really good. So overall, the movie's good. The first two sections aren't the best, but section 3, section 4, the prologue section really do make this worth checking out. And like I said, the first two aren't really bad, they're just okay. And I would definitely recommend checking this out if you're Twilight Zone fans, if you're Dante fans, Spielberg fans probably have already checked this out. It's pretty cool. Just know the first two aren't the best. But man, when you get to that third section, the Dante section, it really heats up, and the last half is really, really good, plus the classic prologue. So I definitely recommend this. Just know about the first two not being the best going in, and you'll have fun with it. But anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. And to everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You're really, really, really helping the channel out. I'll put a relevant playlist on the bottom if you guys want to see more. I'll have a playlist here with videos that are in some way related to this. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom.